Welcome, everyone. I'm Janelle, and I'm so excited to be your host today on behalf of the amazing team at MaxGen Labs, where we're all about empowering your wellness journey through personalized testing. Whether you're a practitioner, a patient, or simply curious about how your genes impact your health, you are in the right place. Now, this webinar is a little different from our usual format. Instead of featuring an outside practitioner, we've brought two incredible experts from inside the MaxGen family to answer your most commonly asked questions and give you a behind-the-scenes look at the MaxGen report. Plus, we'll have a live Q&A at the end. First, we have Dr. Chad Yarbrough, a licensed functional medicine practitioner and founder of MaxGen Labs with a background in clinical nutrition, applied kinesiology, and nutrigenomics. Dr. Chad specializes in translating personalized genetic insights into real-world health improvements. His expertise spans MTHFR, methylation, detoxification, and neurotransmitter pathways. Excuse me. Joining him is Debi Bryk, a board-certified holistic nutritionist who focuses on gut health, autoimmune conditions, functional genomics, and stress management. Inspired by her own family's health challenges, Debi dove deep into how intentional diet and lifestyle changes can influence gene expression and transform well-being. Today, she empowers clients with root cause, personalized approaches to health. Now, before we dive in, if you don't have your own MaxGen report yet, no problem. We're going to share a link to our sample report in the Q&A so you can follow along as we walk through examples. This way you can see exactly the kind of insights our testing provides. We're going to cover a lot today, so get ready, take notes, and don't forget to drop your questions in the Q&A so we can get to as many as possible. All right, without further ado, let's welcome Dr. Chad and Debi.
Hey.
Good morning. Good afternoon.
Good morning. Hi, Debbie.
Hi, Dr. Chad.
It's just Chad. So we have some questions. Is that?
So this is going to be like a casual webinar, and
Yeah,
we're going to go through some of the questions that have come in ahead of time, and then at the end, I think we're going to go through your questions.
We have quite a few people on today.
Yeah, so a lot of people ask, like, what is nutrigenomics and how does it apply to my daily life? So nutrigenomics is how nutrition plays a role in your health and in gene expression, meaning how your genes function. So genetics can increase our risk anywhere from 5% up to 33% or so, but 2/3 or more is diet, lifestyle, and environment. And that's the good news. So by cleaning up our diet and our nutrition and our lifestyle and getting rid of toxins and those things, it helps our genes to function better. So even if we have variants in a gene, it doesn't necessarily mean that that gene is causing us issues. And if it is, many times we can reverse, improve, or prevent those issues by changing our diet, lifestyle, and environment.
Yeah, I might expand on that a bit too. There's so many things that we can do in our environments, what foods to take, foods to not eat, supplements to take, supplements not to take, different environmental factors and things like that. The genetics really helps us narrow that down into the which do we need to really focus on with this individual. And there's literally thousands and thousands of things out there that we could do to try to benefit our health, but what it's going to give you the best bang for your buck is what we're able to try to narrow down using these types of testing.
Yeah, I totally agree. In my practice alone, I can vouch for that. I went from working with people for months and months and months, trying different ways of eating, different supplements, this and that.
You even argued with me for a while, didn't you?
What's that?
Didn't you argue with me for a while?
About what?
The carnivore.
Oh, I did.
Yeah.
I did actually, because it went against everything that I learned and then, in nutrition. But when I did my genetics, and I knew this because I did them a little while ago, but I was hesitant to go down that path of more of like a carnivore way of eating.
Mhm.
But honestly, that totally aligns with my genetics, and I've never felt better. And the same thing is happening, with the clients that do the genetic tests. It's not even an option for me anymore. It's like it takes the stress out, it takes the guesswork out, and it gives you the perfect, the optimal and diet based on the person's genetics down to, and if you're looking at the test down to, is it Mediterranean? Would a paleo diet work? That kind of thing. How does your body process fats? Um, and then the other part of the test that's so incredibly important is, like this question too says, what can it tell me about my health? Well, it can tell you like a lot of things based on your symptoms. Is there a lot of inflammation? Do you have a lot of inflammatory markers? Oxidative stress? Are you potentially, histamine intolerance is a huge one I see a lot, where it's so hard to pinpoint because histamine runs throughout our body. So it can
Mhm.
affect our gut, our lungs, our entire cardiovascular system, our skin, migraines. And people will be suffering with a variety of symptoms, going to a specialist for each one, and each one tells them there's nothing wrong with you. And then, we do the genetic test and keeping it food journal, and we see, oh, it's a histamine issue or mast cell
Mhm.
um, disorder. So it can tell you a lot.
Yeah, it can also, for some reason, I want to speak about the APOE on this one. It's coming to mind. APOE is one of our best genes or best indicators for dementia and Alzheimer's risk factors. There's a lot we've learned about this and what to do, including just standard detox. And actually, everything in the report should actually apply to that to lower the risk for Alzheimer's and dementia. And a lot of people are scared about knowing that, but knowledge really is power here. Because I've seen an early onset dementia patient who was in her 50s do a full recovery following some of these recommendations. So it can tell you a tremendous amount about your health. But I just wanted to elaborate on that because sometimes it scares people. And really, like I said, knowledge really truly is power here. And we can modify some of these risk factors fairly easily.
Yeah, I love that you said that, because I've actually had clients say that to me. They're like, "Well, I don't know if I want to know, because I don't want to know if I have a risk for this, risk for that." And I'm like, "But this is empowering for you. It's by knowing this information, now you have the blueprint to your optimal health, so that the goal is to prevent that from ever happening, and it totally can. I mean, my father's the poster child for cardiovascular disease. I have the genetics for cardiovascular disease, but I don't have cardiovascular disease. I mean, I don't have any
Right.
cardiovascular issues at all, but my diet and my lifestyle is completely different than his. And many times we get the diseases and disorders of our family because we adopt the same diet and lifestyle of our family. And so when you learn what's best for your unique DNA, it's an incredible tool. It's invaluable. To me, I've had people come to me and they want to do stool testing, organic acid testing, hormones. I'm like, listen, if you're going to put your money anywhere, put it in the genetics, because your genetics never change, and you'll have
Right.
that blueprint for life.
True. Let's see, is it painful? No, actually, we've tried to make everything as painless and easy as possible, from ordering to getting your report to reading your report to implementing the report, but also the actual testing. Um, I guess the person who submitted this hasn't done it. All our testing is for MaxGen for the genetics is just a simple cheek swab. Just make sure it's this cheek, not the others. Our PhDs don't like it when we get colored samples in. How are we different from other at-home kits? Oh gosh, we get this question a lot. So we were actually founded for two main reasons. This is back in 2016. We were doing a lot with spectrum kids, infertility. There wasn't really a test on the market that got the genes and the SNPs that I wanted to see in practice. We were using like 23andMe raw data back then, and they switched to their V4 chip. So a lot of these companies, they use off the shelf genetics test, which is, it's a cheap way to do things, but you miss out on a lot of really important genes like MAOA, which has to do with serotonin breakdown. I think they cut out GPX and a lot of the antioxidant SNPs that I like to look at in practice. And I got really frustrated because there really was no options on the market at the time. And then we found out that there was all these people selling the data on the back end. There was another lab that came that was trying to get started that was shipping samples overseas to China. So we have all this data privacy issues. And anytime you use a third party or there's somebody else involved with the DNA testing or the analysis of it, um, that's just one more security leak that you could potentially have with your data. And I'm all about privacy. So we were really founded on privacy. We were the first lab that I know of that was offering 100% privacy back in 2016, 2017. The other thing I feel like that was big with us was we were able to create a report that was easy to digest. And I had a camera guy from a photographer, and I was talking to him like, "What kind of camera do we need to get? Because we want to shoot these videos." And and I was wanting to spend some money on it. And he's like, "The best camera for you to get is the camera you're actually going to use." And I was like, well, yeah, of course, but that's turned out to be true as I've bought 5 different types of cameras. I don't use the expensive ones, the big ones, the nice ones. I use the one that I can carry and actually use. So if the reports that you get from another lab is confusing or conflicting or strange, it's not easy to follow, it's not easy to implement, it's a waste. And I actually did full genomic testing on myself. It took a year to get the results back. The data was subpar. It wasn't what they advertised. And I can't really use it. It's this massive raw data file. The reports were not that great. Because in my head, I was like, oh, full genome, this is great. But it's we can't use it really to do this type of testing. If you do full genomic testing, you need at least 100x, in my opinion, 100 coverage on that. And that's about $800 to $1,200 for full genomic testing. So you have a couple of labs on the market right now that are offering it under that. They're giving you subpar data. Now, full genomic testing is fantastic. If something really serious is going on, you can find these little ultra rare variants that are out there, but you really need the 100 coverage, not 30, not below that. And most people recommending 30x coverage on full genomic testing it's more like 10. Nobody's actually checking the raw data files like we did. So you're not getting what you're actually paying for right now. So more is not always better, in my opinion. And the platform that we've chosen to go off of is a smaller platform. We don't do full genomic testing. We check 200 of the most research SNPs that functional medicine practitioners want to see in practice, that they think are the most important to look at in people. And that's what we look at. And we break it down in a way that's easy for people to understand and implement. And we actually own our machines. So with a chain of custody of the sample, from the time you mail it to us, once it gets to our lab, to the time your report comes to you, we had 100% chain of custody of that sample, the data, the demographics, everything. And I want to elaborate a little bit more on that. When you have a lab and you actually own the machines like we do, you're responsible for the maintenance of the machines. You're responsible for the data quality that's coming out of those machines, which if you're outsourcing this to another lab, which almost everyone in this industry is doing right now, you're at the mercy of that lab who's running the samples. We've sent samples out. We've tried to do that a few times, and the data we get back from some of these labs is just terrible. So it just wasn't. I wasn't comfortable with giving data that might have errors in it. So we actually ponied up and spent a lot of money on machines, and just bought another one. So the chain of custody, I think, and the privacy and the eases of use is what's really our biggest thing, and our 7-day turnaround time right now. So we are rocking and rolling. We process samples every Thursday, and we run the samples over the weekend, and we start delivering reports normally on Tuesday. So if you get a sample to us by Thursday, you should have a report around Tuesday or Wednesday, which if you're using some of the other labs, you're going to wait about a month. If you do full genomic, you may be waiting up to a year before you get data back. But that's my 2 cents. What do you think, Debbie? You got anything else to add to that?
The only thing that I would add is to back up what you said too, is as I've researched other companies, and I have accounts with other companies, but I've never used them because when I looked into their actual tests, yeah, like Chad was saying, they offer more genes, but then, and you're like, oh, wow. And then when I started to research them, there's no evidence on them. So
Yeah.
it's just, all it does is confuse, it just makes it the test more confusing and just a lot of noise that is useless, because if the gene isn't research based and backed up, then you really can't trust it. And that's what I
Mhm.
love about the MaxGen test, is that all of the genes on there, the SNPs on there, are evidence research based. So you don't need 200,000, SNPs that aren't going to give you any information. That's just going to be confusing. You can use that test, and the way it's designed, it's so easy to understand if you start from the beginning. And this might even be a question coming up, and you go through it page by page. It's designed where you work, the foundation section is first, so you have to be sleeping, so that's part of the
Mhm.
foundation. Working on your diet, oxidative stress. A lot of people, uh, they might go to their doctor and they'll get one gene tested, like MTHFR, which is the big buzzword, because that's our master methylation gene. And they go right into, oh, I got to take methylated Bs. And they don't feel well, and they don't know why. Is it because of my COMT gene? Is it because of this? It could also be just because you're so toxic. You should really clean up your diet and your gut and your
Mhm.
lifestyle first before you start trying to methylate. So the way the test is set up, it's set up that if you make the changes in order of the test, you're going to start feeling better each step of the way. And that's what's so amazing about it.
Yeah. We set that up. One of the first doctors I ever trained under was Dr. Walter Schmidt. He was a brilliant man, and he took clinical notes on every patient for I think 20 or 30 years. He's recently passed away, and I hated to see that. That guy was so far ahead of his time. And every time I learned something new, it was built into his protocol. So basically, he took notes on what worked with every patient, and what worked the most, he prioritized, and then created this clinical protocol of what to do first, second, third, and last, which I thought was brilliant. And it clicked with me. And I've always wanted to make the Progenics report in that same order or a similar order to his, and that I've seen doing this type of work and training under him and being a practitioner for 10 years. And that's how we set it up was, the really important heavy hitting stuff is in the front. There's a lot of things in the front that we clean up before we address things later that can cause some issues. And we have a little bit of fine tuning on it, but for the most part, I think it's really turned out very well this last year's update. Um, just wanted to add that in. Give some credit to Dr. Wally.
Totally agree.
What genetic test do you offer? Key. Well, they're all on the website. We try to make the website very user friendly and a lot of info, so they're all there. We recommend the works, and another thing that separates us apart too is um, we one of the other reasons we made it too was to come see a practitioner. It's expensive, it's not cheap, so we try to make this affordable. So our functional med panel, our max function, is like $200, but we also offer payment plans. So even if that's too far out of reach, I think it'll go out 6 months on payment plans. So it's relatively inexpensive from that standpoint. Um, the works panel, that's our biggest panel. It includes all the genetics for diet and weight loss, including exercise recommendations. We have another panel that we're going to start running samples on next week, trial samples. We have a mold sensitivity panel that's coming out. So that should be up in about a month or so. Really excited about that. Um, our max food panel by itself is just basically how to eat. What's the best diet for you? Different foods, different habits you may not realize you have. So some people tend to even overeat. The brain doesn't feel full like a normal person, so they just continue to eat, and then they have that delayed sense of satiety. And some people don't realize that. And those people you have to really watch portion controls and eat slow. And that tends to drop 7 pounds a month just by realizing like, hey, I don't consciously feel full soon. So little things like that is in the Max Food and in the Works panels. We do offer some food sensitivity panels. Those are just a finger prick. Those are blood panels. Just a little click your finger, dot it off. It tells you what kind of foods your immune system's reacting to. That is different. That is a whole different test. So we typically try to get reports out every Tuesday and Wednesday. After we get the report, after we get the sample. So I think we kind of covered that about 7-day average. If you go out past 10 and you haven't heard from us, check your spam folders sometimes, especially with Gmails. It ends up in the spam. If nothing's there and it's been 10 days, 10, 12 days, you might want to give us a call. We may be rerunning it, or give us an email. If we have a sample, the only time we have any types of issues with testing is when it's a bad sample, somebody ate before they swabbed it, the swab's discolored or some type of thing. There is a little buffer solution in the vials. It's non-toxic that should stabilize the DNA for pretty much indefinitely, up to 160 degrees. It's the foods and things that people are eating. If they don't get a good swab, or if the food, like a citrus is in there, it's going to break the DNA down. That's the only time we have any type of issues. And I don't like seeing bad data go out, so we'll rerun it. And that may add on like a week. So if something happens, that's probably what we're doing, is rerunning it. Because I would rather it be delayed 7 days than potentially bad.
Yeah, and your kit has instructions on there, and it instructs you not to eat or drink anything but just plain water at least an hour before doing the test. And it's very simple. Like Chad was saying, it's just a cheek swab. So you can do it from infants to adults. So I've had a lot of clients do it on their babies, which if you can get that information as a child, that's like amazing, because do you need to retest? No, you don't need to retest, because your genetics never change. It's a one and done. So it's really an investment in your health that is invaluable in my opinion. And you really don't need a practitioner to understand the report. It's designed so that if you followed, like I was just saying, through the test page by page, section by section, and making the changes, then most people don't need a practitioner. But if you feel that you need some additional help, maybe you have a lot of autoimmune issues or a lot of inflammation, and you just want some extra help there, on the MaxGen website, there is a list of practitioners that you can search for, either in your area. A lot of them work remotely, that can help you with your results if needed, and any further assistance you need.
Yeah, there's a lot of genes that counteract each other. They either aggravate each other more, they improve each other somehow. There's a lot of these, we call it a polygenic type situation, where we have multiple genes influencing an outcome. And we've built a lot of that into the algorithms that make the reports out. So yeah, the reports are designed to be understood by anybody. You just have to take the time to read it. But some people still might have some issues or have some questions. That's when a practitioner comes into play. And we recommend working with practitioners. The supplement world is full of, fake supplements, especially on Amazon. You need a good link to get good supplements, and we offer those too. If you need them, just message in. There should be on our Instagram if you need those links. And also, there's a lot of times, there's a lot of labs and stuff that you want to run to after this. If someone has a problem with absorbing, B12, or even we're one of the only labs that check a cellular receptor for B12. If you see those genes, you really need like a urinary MMA ran just to check your B12, because normal B12 levels aren't going to be accurate for you. So sometimes it is good to work with a practitioner for sure.
Yeah, that's a great point. I just want to piggyback off of that. I see it on the Facebook pages all the time. It's like, my B12 is super high, and sometimes they're not even supplementing with B12. There are certain gene variants that could cause falsely elevated serum B12 levels. Same thing with folate. And so whenever you get a serum level test on a nutrient, it's just telling you what's floating around in the blood. It's not telling you, am I getting this nutrient into the cell? And so there's several genes that can affect folate metabolism, B12 metabolism, and absorption. And so getting, like Chad said, a methylmalonic acid test, that can be done with blood as well, but an organic acid test, which has the methylmalonic acid in it, goes really great with a genetic test. And then getting RBC folate tested, which that will show you if folate is getting into the cell. Because your doctor might be like, oh, your levels are high, but intracellularly, you could be starving.
The folates, especially if you have MTHFR or any of the converting folate genes, if you're running a serum level of folate, it's a mixed folate. It's all of them thrown into the same test, so you don't know. So you could have a hard time. It could be all synthetic folic acid that's in the serum folate level that you've got. I have heard from some of our practitioners, they try to get the serum folates above 15. People tend to feel better at that point. So just a little added extra tip.
Yeah, and if you have variants in MTHFR and you're consuming synthetic folic acid, your body cannot convert it into a usable form of methylfolate. Not only that, it can mask a B12 deficiency and it can block folate receptors. So now when you do eat your leafy greens and your eggs, your folate can't get into the cell. And then there's another gene, the SLC19A1, which has to do with getting folate into the cell. So now if you have variants there and you're consuming folic acid, you really could be starving your cells of folate.
Mm-hmm. We get this question a lot. We probably need to break this down on the report a little better. So where do I start with this? So
do you want me to go?
Wild type is what we find in nature the most. And heterozygous means you've got a variant from one of your parents. Homozygous means you got a variant from both of your parents. Now, these aren't mutations. A lot of people get this confused, like, oh, I have this mutation. It's not nearly it's not an acquired mutation, like something happened and it changed your DNA. These are a lot of what we're looking at. These are normal variants that are in the population that are passed down and have been passed down for years, hundreds of years. They're just now becoming a problem because our environments are so toxic. Our diets are not near what they should be. We're not living the same way we used to live. Or some of these do cause issues. And some of them, it's interesting when you start really looking at them, some of these variants, they create a benefit in some aspects, but then they create this other issue that is also a problem with some people. So they're not all bad and they're not all good. Most of what we look at are not good, but sometimes there are some trade-offs that are beneficial, and that's why they've been retained in our environment. So that's what it is, and that's why we don't use the green, yellow, red stoplight colors. We use shades of blue because not everything is red, and people would see so many reds and they think, "Oh my gosh, I'm dying." It's not the case. We know what to do now. It's just what your weaknesses are and what your strengths are. So the homozygous are positive. Now there is another lab, a couple labs that will say homozygous wild type, and if you've used that lab, homozygous wild type just means you're normal. It's the variant that's wild type. Homozygous really just means the same. So you're normal same. But if you see our homozygous positive, that means you got a variant. You want to add on to that?
The only thing I was going to add was, so when you see wild type, it doesn't always necessarily mean it's good or normal, in the sense that the gene potentially could still have an issue. Like Chad was saying, I think it's the GSTP1, one of those, that has to do with toxins. That's a wild type, but because most people have it, it causes toxicity. And then for like the COMT gene and the MAOA, the heterozygous variant is actually considered ideal, like balanced. So that's where it's important your results on the pretty pages at the top takes into account, like Chad was saying, like the genes in the pathway. So if you look down at the SNP summaries at the bottom and you're like, oh, well, at the top it says that I don't have this, but this says blah, blah, blah. It's not a contraindication. It's not a contradiction. It's pulling several of the genes together and saying, based on these genes, because you might have some wild type, some homozygous, some hetero, whatever, that this is the result. And that would be at the top pages.
Mm-hmm. We got this a lot too over the last 8 years, 10 years, is where do I start? And that's why we broke this down into the foundation, the core, the advanced, and the optimized sections. You really want to start with the foundations. The foundations really is about removing things from your life and your environment that's causing potential issues downstream. If you start reading a lot of these recommendations or a lot of the research papers that we look at for these SNPs and the genes that we're looking at, there's so much data on like smoking, for instance. Smoking aggravates it. Smoking increases this, increases that, especially with this or that. That's why we prioritize smoking like in the very beginning. And we're looking at ways to help someone who is smoking stop. And if you don't smoke, no big deal. But we still have to deal with a lot of people who are still smoking quite often, and we have to remove that. And then the core section, and that's just an example. There's all these other toxins in the environment. Histamines, we prioritize histamine because it messes up everything. And it's one of the most overlooked things. And I feel like in this industry is histamine sensitivities. Fatty acids and inflammation is in the foundation. If we're not getting enough omega-3s, we're not producing enough of the anti-inflammatory cytokines and these different immune system chemicals. So some people don't, like me, I don't break down seed oils and different types of omegas the way that I should. So I do better on an ancestral diet where I get plenty of naturally occurring fatty acids like omega-3s, and I feel way better on it. But that's huge. So if we're not addressing these things early on, we're kind of just wasting away. That's why a lot of people go, I have MTHFR, they take it, it didn't do a difference. So that's probably not where you should have started. So this is how we've laid it out, is like, just start here. It's very easy to get a 30-page report and be just overwhelmed with it. But once again, the best camera to buy is the one you're going to use. So stick with the foundation section, then move to core. And then if you start feeling good in core, stay there. Just kind of hang out there. You can't do too much in this. A lot of people we see, they'll post pictures of their advanced sections and like, what do we do? Well, did you do the foundation first? No, right. We'll go back and do that. And then let's see how you feel in a couple of weeks, and then move on to core, then move on to advance, and then optimize if you want. So that's how we've really tried to break this down. We've kind of covered this already. So.
Right. And I see that in practice too. Many times when I work on the gut health, the diet, the lifestyle, taking out the toxins, oxidative stress, and then we never really have to mega dose anything. We just basic nutrients, and the person is already feeling significantly better. So to just dump a ton of high dose supplements in your body because you see a test that says you need it, and people are saying this, they're doing this all the time, that can really backfire on you.
Yeah. I love supplements and targeted supplement therapy.
Yeah.
But really, I'd rather see people get the nutrients from their diet. And that's what we've tried to include: foods that are high in these supplements or nutrients and things like that. And this
report, that's the other thing that's great about the test, is that it shows like symptoms, nutrient, foods that have these that can help support that. So it's really laid out amazing for you. Okay.
And this report explained migraines, fatigue, bloating, brain fog, or anxiety. Man, that sounds like a histamine patient right there. Yes. Migraines, I see a lot of people write in that their migraines are gone. That's a pretty easy one. Fatigue and bloating and brain fog, all of these are symptoms of histamine intolerance, symptoms of toxicities, inability to produce neurotransmitters, or inability to break them down. So yeah, this all of these symptoms are scattered throughout the report. We really took you don't treat the symptom that the patient has. You take the patient that has the symptom. You treat the patient that has the symptom here. So I'm not a big fan of like treating symptoms. I'm a big fan of treating the person and how their specific biochemistries are and what they're sensitive to and what they're not. If that makes sense.
Makes sense to me.
Sleep and weight loss. There is a gene that is associated with sleep and weight loss. We do look at that. I don't know which one it is off the top of my head, but yeah, that once again, we prioritize sleep. If you're not sleeping, your body's not recovering. If your body's not recovered, it's not going to operate functionally or optimally. So yeah, we definitely prioritize sleep for everything, including weight loss. But there are specific research papers on genes and weight loss with sleep. You want to handle that one, Debbie?
Yeah, no, this is great. I think it's empowering to know that, because I have a lot of clients that, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm genetically prone to, emotional eating or craving or snacks. I have the sweet tooth, and many people already know that. But when you see that, at least that's like, okay, so that's my genetics. And so then I always educate on, tools to help combat that. So if you're an emotional eater, then really mindful, I teach a lot of like mindfulness and eating hygiene and, slowing down and being very present with your food. And so if you're checking yourself and you're upset, you're not hungry, you know that you just want to grab the Haagen-Dazs or the bag of potato chips, then it does take some willpower here, but at least, you know, I give my clients the tools like, call a friend, go for a walk, journal, um, read a book, make a cup of tea, things like that that can help them. And then usually like cravings and stuff usually only lasts, studies show anyway, about 20 minutes. So if you can find a diversion, then you can get over that hump and avoid doing that. The overeating, like Chad was mentioning earlier, I have that. And so, and again, when I talk to people and they have this gene, they pretty much know. It's like you're eating and you feel like it's taking you forever to get, like, you could just eat so much. And then about 20 minutes, a half an hour later, you're like, oh my goodness, I ate way too much. And then you have a stomach ache. And so for people like that, my recommendation is always only eat till you're about 80% full at the most, portion control your food and slow it down, and then wait about 20 minutes or so and see, am I really still hungry? I can tell you from personal experience that I have to stop eating when I still feel a little hungry, because if I eat till I feel full, I overeat every single time.
There's a lot of
Intermittent fasting is another good one too. Go ahead. Sorry.
yeah. There's a lot of this is similar to dopamine too. You get a dopamine spike from these foods. So it's kind of like some of these foods can stimulate like sugar. I've heard it stimulates the dopamine receptor and the reward mechanisms in the brain, similar to like cocaine. And a lot of these drugs like cocaine that boost dopamine up, um, that's how some of these foods are to some people. They're dopamine, they get a little dopamine hit from it. So if as we do some of these other things, we calm a lot of the brain inflammation down and we get things operating the way they should, your dopamine production should go back up and you don't feel the need to get that hit. And that
No,
works.
yeah. Sorry.
No, you're right.
I was gonna say that's a great point, because the carbohydrate sensitivity too. Again, highly sensitive to to carbohydrates, especially refined. So for people that have that, um, the refined carbohydrates are going to be more inflammatory, and they're going to increase your risk for insulin resistance and diabetes. If I start eating carbs, it's like what Chad's saying. It is. It's like an addiction for me. Like I just want to keep eating them. So, but when I stay away from them and I eat more of like a carnivore way of eating now, I don't crave them. But if I decide I go out and I decide to eat it, it's literally like sometimes a switch goes off and I just want to keep eating it. So that's a really huge one too. So this is another great page. This one really narrows it down to what is the best way of eating based on your genetics. The DASH diet, so there's a gene, the ACE gene, ACE, that if you have variants in that gene, it's going to recommend a DASH diet. So when I have clients, if they don't have high blood pressure, I don't really worry about the DASH diet. I'll go more usually the Mediterranean or paleo.
Same for hunter-gatherer.
Yeah, hunter-gatherer, paleo.
You want to tackle this?
Oh, sorry. What about gluten? Okay, gluten sensitivity. Okay, this is I love this page. So many of us are sensitive to gluten. It's kind of common, and there's so many genes that can increase our risk for gluten sensitivity.
I think we checked 4
Especially, what's that, 4 or 5 do we have?
I think
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, there's several of them. And now this is a sensitivity, not an allergy. So if you were to go to an allergist, they might tell you don't have a gluten allergy, you're fine. But my genetic test says I'm sensitive to gluten. This is a sensitivity. So this is different than an allergy. So the sensitivities can increase your risk for celiac disease, inflammatory bowel disease, with the consumption of gluten. For people with the MCM6 gene, that one increases the risk for inflammatory bowel disease and celiac disease because gluten has been shown to increase zonulin in the gut, which is inflammatory. And you can get zonulin levels tested. But definitely, this is motivating because, and most people know that all wheat in the United States has been hybridized. So it's not the same as it was in the 1950s. They took different forms of wheat that would never cross-pollinize in nature, and they created a wheat in a lab that could sustain drought and flood. No, we're going to feed the world. But then it created all these new odd proteins. So it's inflammatory I believe, to all of us if it's modern wheat. And then the fortification, fortified with the folic acid, that's another issue that you have. And then the dairy sensitivity, this is another one where wild type is actually makes you potentially lactose intolerant because most people stop making that lactate enzyme into adulthood. And then some people too, high fat dairy increases BMI. I had a client that she was incredible. She worked out, she ate super healthy, high protein, and she couldn't lose weight. But she loved her cheese and she loved her milk. And we ran her genetics, and she had increased BMI with dairy. And I'm like, I hate to tell you this, but we're gonna have to take the dairy out. She took the dairy out and literally started dropping weight like crazy. It's amazing.
That's I've seen that a lot with that gene.
Yeah. And then the GI barrier integrity, this is another one that was really important if you're at higher risk for leaky gut.
Yeah.
And then the non-secretor, I don't know how much you want me to get into that one.
Go for it. It's
okay.
We may go over a few minutes here.
So this gene is the only one on the test that you cannot change the expression of. You're either born a secretor or you're born a non-secretor. So secretors, they secrete this beneficial prebiotic sugar called fucose into the GI tract. And so this beneficial sugar actually helps to feed bacteria in the gut. It's also not only found that fucose is not only found in the gut, but also in saliva, sweat, semen, tears, and even breast milk. So people that are non-secretors do not secrete this beneficial sugar. And so it's missing in all those areas that I just mentioned. And what it causes is it causes dysbiosis or imbalance in the gut flora, most notably the bifidobacteria. So that fructose sugar feeds bifidobacteria. Bifidobacteria is one of the main bacteria that helps our body to break down carbohydrates. So people that are non-secretors, many times they suffer from constipation, IBS, and gas and bloating from eating carbs, especially refined carbs, or even it can be all carbs. And so when you're a non-secretor, that increases your risk for IBS, inflammatory bowel disease, celiac disease, SIBO, small intestinal bacteria overgrowth, candida, and other gut infections. But it makes you immune to the norovirus and the rotavirus, which is funny. So secretors are prone to the norovirus. Non-secretors do not get the stomach flu, the norovirus. The other thing that sugar feeds is bacteria that create key amino acids, lysine, tryptophan, and tyrosine. So people that are non-secretors have a higher risk for anxiety, depression, and chronic fatigue and canker sores because of the lysine deficiency. So the other thing it does is it causes falsely elevated B12 levels. So this serum B12 levels. So this was one of the ones I was talking about that can definitely cause that. So this one's a big deal.
Huge.
I'm a non-secretor. I got great genes.
Yeah, I am too.
Yeah, right.
And I will not get stomach flu. I can be
Me
around
either.
people with it. I'm not getting it.
Same. Never had it.
And this is one of the most misunderstood genes in, I think, our industry, because a lot of other labs use this marker for B12 levels. And it never made sense to me until we found more papers on it that showed that people who are non-secretors, who are prone to leaky gut, they absorb these unusable cobalamins or unusable inert B12. So it's B12, but it's not usable. So it spikes the level up. So if you know you have it, you're going to see, you may miss low B12 in patients, or you may have low B12 if you have this, but your labs are normal. And without it, you're not going to know. And this is built into our B12 page. So we did this correctly. Yep. We've been hammering histamine. I don't think we need to smash this. Do it.
So basically, all toxins and environmental exposure, like the bad stuff, we should all try to avoid as much as possible. But when you see that you're genetically sensitive to those, it means that your body doesn't detox as efficiently from them, and they're more inflammatory. So it can be more of an issue for certain people. Glutathione has been shown to help detox from a lot of toxins. Methylation obviously is super important. The one that I really like to camp on here is the acetaminophen gene. This one is extremely important. So many times especially moms are told when the baby gets, your child gets a fever, to give them Tylenol. But some people genetically have a toxic response to acetaminophen. It's this, it causes this toxin, this NAPQI in the liver, that the liver has to, it actually damages the liver, and it reduces glutathione. So, here you have a sick child, and we need glutathione. It's our body's most potent antioxidant. And so we need it to heal, fight viruses, fight infections, that kind of thing. And now the child has a fever, and they're given Tylenol, and the Tylenol is reducing glutathione even further. And some people are genetically predisposed to low glutathione. Add that on top of acetaminophen toxicity, and you've got like the perfect storm.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an important one. I don't think anyone should take Tylenol.
I don't either, no matter what. I agree.
Mm. This is a big gene we see in a lot of spectrum kids too.
Yep.
We've
That's a great question.
yeah, you want to briefly touch on it? We've kind of
Yeah, so basically your genetics tell you what you're genetically predisposed to. It's not saying you have a deficiency. So I never high dose anything um, unless I have labs to prove that we actually need to do that. I work with the gut and the diet. That's what you want to do first. And obviously, if it's like vitamin D, we need to get that from sunshine, or food is the best, sunshine and food is sunshine's the best source, but food too, but it's hard to get it from food. So that's one nutrient that most people, especially depending on where you live, can be deficient. But as far as the other ones, um, if you're consuming the foods on the page, then you should be okay. Now, the vitamin A, our body has to convert the beta carotene form of vitamin A into the retinol form, which is only found in animal protein. So if you're a vegetarian or a vegan and you have variants there, that might be a problem for you, because you're not converting. You can eat all those vitamin A, the beta carotene, which is not the same as retinol form of vitamin A. But if it's not turning into retinol, you could have a vitamin A deficiency. So if you're not willing to consume animal protein, then you'd want to supplement. You might need to supplement, I should say, with a retinol or cod liver oil or something.
yeah, I love cod liver. Cod liver oil is great for
Yeah,
A and
same.
D.
Hmm.
Same here.
Yeah, same. And in the test will tell you if you're sensitive to methylated Bs. And again, we don't want to start megadosing anything because you
No.
might not be sensitive to methylated Bs, but if you take high doses and you're toxic and you haven't addressed everything else, then you might have symptoms anyway.
Especially the phosphatidylcholine. That's such an important molecule.
Yeah, that one's I'm like loving phosphatidylcholine because that's that PEMT gene. It's part of the methylation pathway. And studies show that low levels of choline or phosphatidylcholine, because it's the precursor to acetylcholine in the brain, that it actually is linked to increased risk and severity of ADHD, autism, and Alzheimer's. And it's a phospholipid that helps break down fats in the liver. So variants in the PEMT, and there's another gene. I think it's I forget which one it is. Is it the MAT1 that can affect choline? No, that's not that one. The choline levels. Um, so if low levels of phosphatidylcholine or choline are also linked to non-alcoholic fatty liver disease and high cholesterol. So it's extremely important. And the best food source, which is on the test, is egg yolks.
Yep. I had a client with this once who she had a whole, she went on phosphatidylcholine and did really well, but it's kind of funny when you improve someone's brain function, they don't remember how bad they felt previously. And then and phosphatidylcholine is kind of expensive. And when you take it, she didn't want to keep paying for it, so she came off of it. But she was beating on our door a week later trying to buy some. She's like, I can't remember anything. This stuff's really a game changer. And I'm like, yeah, I tried to tell you, but it's interesting to see an unhealthy brain will not have a very good memory of what it felt like. So
Yeah.
it's good to keep, if you're going through a health journey, it's good to keep a diary of how you felt and then to see the tracks to see if it's actually going up, because it's hard to actually feel a difference sometimes because you just don't remember.
100%. Yeah, that's why, like, I have this toxicity questionnaire that I would give to my clients in the start of working with them, and then 3 months later or whatever, when we were done, give it to them again, and the symptoms, how they were significantly less, and they would forget that they were that bad
Yep.
before. Yeah,
Yep.
that's a good point.
We might should put a thing about journaling in the beginning of the report because it is important.
That would be Yeah, I agree. I think we hit on this one.
Yeah, we've kind of smashed. I mean, yeah.
So if someone has a slow CompT, which has to do with neurotransmitters, so whether you're so a slow CompT and slow MAO basically means that the person potentially has a buildup of neurotransmitters. They have too many, serotonin, dopamine, norepinephrine. And many times people that are slow that have that buildup, they have symptoms of like ADHD, they're kind of wired, they don't sleep well, digestive issues, stuff like that, if the gene's expressing. When it's a slow CompT, it's been shown that those people can be sensitive to the methylated Bs. And so starting really low and slow, or again, doing the diet first is always important, and just doing low levels if needed. But there's other forms that might be better, like a folinic acid and a I always say this word wrong, hydroxycobalamin. I don't know how to say that one.
Close
Um,
enough.
that one, or adeno B12 is another great, adenosicobalamin. I don't know. That one is great for ATP production. So it's good for energy. So there's other forms that you can choose. You just want to avoid synthetic folic acid as far as folate, and you want to avoid cyanocobalamin in the form of B12. That CYAN is a molecule of cyanide. It's a cheap synthetic form, which is really, can it raise B12 levels? Yeah, for some people, sure. But it's a molecule, it's a toxin that your liver now has to detox from. But your comp page will tell you if you're sensitive, and it'll give you the suggestions, and it'll say, start really low and slow.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I saw that in the comments. So you've probably got a variant on the CYP1B1 and probably a slow COMT. Those two together is kind of a bad combination. I would really encourage anyone who has that combination or that part of the test to go back and look at Tara Scott's webinar she did with us a few months ago. Tara
Yeah.
is a brilliant woman. I love her to death. She's sweet as she can be. She's an OBGYN. She lectures for the American Academy of Anti-Aging. She's a brilliant practitioner. I would follow her and watch that show, but she's the expert on all of that as far as HRT goes. But yeah, you need to probably watch that. We normally recommend a Dutch test to follow up to evaluate what that's doing. Someone who does, bioidentical hormones or hormone therapies, they probably need to monitor that on you. Because if that does go up, it's an extremely reactive form of estrogen. The CYP1B1 variant is it actually speeds up the production of that estrogen. And then COMT is what breaks that down. So COMT not only breaks down the neurotransmitters, it breaks down estrogens and catechoestrogens. So if that's slow, you get a really big buildup of that intermediate, which is the 4-hydroxyestrogen. That's really, really really strong, and that's associated with a bunch of different types of things we probably shouldn't mention on a webinar. It's not a good situation. So yeah, you need to probably watch that and let your doctor know. And that's not something everyone tests or knows about. So you may need a really good hormone doctor for that.
So
Suox.
homozygous SUOX, yeah, this was the sulfite sensitivity gene. So if this gene's expressing, you'll be sensitive to sulfite and sulfur-based foods, what is that? Beer, wine. I think even the cruciferous vegetables could be an issue for people with this gene. What's interesting is molybdenum has been shown to help with this gene expression. I actually had a client that owned a winery, and she had to taste the wine, and she had severe sulfite sensitivity. So what we did was we just high dosed molybdenum 15 minutes prior to her having to taste the wine, and it actually worked.
I heard they used to put molybdenum in wine a long time ago.
Really?
I think they
Wow.
should start doing that again. Molybdenum is great. It's whenever I see somebody with that, I also ask if someone is low in molybdenum, they're not breaking down a lot of these other like aldehydes as well. So typically you'll see people who are really sensitive to the new carpet smell. Just ask them, are you really sensitive to strong smells like new carpet, fragrances? And they're like, oh my gosh, yes, like I can't stand them. They really need to take a lot of molybdenum. So that's another kind of indicator that I use to see if someone needed molybdenum. So if you have SUOX and you are sensitive to carpet smells and those things, please try molybdenum. It might be a game changer.
That's awesome. And I think we pretty much covered the PEMT. And the only thing I would add on that is that I personally would avoid the soy. A lot of the companies use soy lecithin for their phosphatidylcholine. I would choose ones that use like a high quality sunflower.
It's a good point. Yeah, that's such a big thing. And the phosphatidylcholine deficiency in the presence of MTHFR is a really interesting situation because we make so MTHFR, the whole point of methylation is really to produce SAMe, which is our master methylating donor. And PEMT is the MT at the end of that gene is methyltransferase. Any methyltransferase gene requires SAMe. So it actually takes 3 molecules of SAMe, 3 turns of the methylation cycle, essentially, to produce 1 molecule of phosphatidylcholine. And the same thing for creatine. That's why you'll see a lot of people on MTHFR and they do really well on creatine, just standard creatine monohydrate from the gym store up the street. Same thing with phosphatidylcholine. If you're giving these nutrients, you don't have to waste 3 molecules or 3 spins of the methylation cycle to produce the phosphatidylcholine. So if you supplement with it, you're actually supporting your MTHFR as well. So that's kind of a really good question that was asked here. If you have those PEMTs in C6, 7, 17, you should really try a high quality phosphatidylcholine. And I would do it before trying methylfolate. That's why it's actually prioritized in the report before our folate page.
Yeah, for sure.
We had other questions here.
Yeah, should we start taking questions from the chat?
Yeah, there's a couple I've seen. Let me sample. If you've run one of our older tests, we can't upgrade based off the old data. We've updated the panel this year. If you did one of our old panels, just email in and talk to them and be nice and beg Brandy. She might help you out there. Follow up. We've kind of discussed that. Is there a way to include this test in my practice is abroad in Costa Rica? I will personally bring you samples in Costa Rica, test kits. I love Costa Rica. It is like my favorite place to go. That thermal spa up in Arenald, man, that's my go-to place every January to clear my head. But yeah, we do offer international kits for practitioners. We have people all over the world, literally all over the world. Just get with us. We have to custom make those for you, but we can do it. And a lot of our international practitioners, what they'll do too is they'll take all their samples from the week and send it in one box to us once a week or once every other week, just to save on the shipping costs. But it's no problem. We have everything set up with the CDC and stuff to get stuff through customs.
So as far as support for the person after the results are received, so we do have a private Facebook page group where I'm going to be adding more education on there. You can ask questions on the Facebook page. Also on our website, if you go under articles, there's education on there. Our YouTube channel, there is educational videos on YouTube. So there's a lot of resources there. As far as practitioners, we do offer practitioner consults. That's for practitioners.
Did you see the Mediterranean paleo celiac question here? Trouble with liquid fats? You can, if you have trouble with liquid fats, you can try lipase or even ox bile sometimes, especially if you don't have a gallbladder. If your gallbladder was removed, ox bile works great. Do you have anything to add to that, Debbie? You're kind of the go-to on this.
there definitely, there's a gene, I can't remember off the top of my head, that has to do with bile production. Um, and then also the way that your body breaks down fat. Some people don't break them down as well. But again, that also could be a phosphatidylcholine deficiency. I had gallbladder disease. They wanted to remove my gallbladder. This was before I was a nutritionist. And I was like, I'm not losing an organ. And it's funny, back then, I actually, well, I ate completely different. So I went, got this book on natural cures, and I did this gallbladder cleanse. And one of the things was was like sunflower lecithin. So I started taking that, and I literally healed my gallbladder. And then I changed my diet because I didn't eat well. But so that could be something too. The choline deficiency could affect the way that your body is breaking down fats. Because if you think about it, it's an emulsifier. So if you look at like a lot of dairy products, what prevents that separation, they put in, you know, it's usually soy lecithin, or, because the lecithin, it actually prevents it, it breaks down and emulsifies fat.
Learning more about each genes and how they work. Uh, there are so many places that have mediocre information about this stuff, and I kind of disagree with how a lot of people interpret a lot of the research. The one person I think is really good with a lot of this would be Ben Lynch. He's got really good videos. His book Dirty Genes is really good. It's not very inclusive, but it's a good starting point. Um, Amy Asco has some really good stuff too, but you know, I stick to the research, but I'm a nerd. But that's a good place to start is Ben Lynch. Any of our videos, obviously, we've had many doctors over the years do videos for us. Uh, Don Thompson's great lecturer for us. Tara Scott, we mentioned her. A lot of our old webinars, I think they're all on YouTube, and some of our clips are on YouTube. I'd start there. Start there, check it out, watch some of those videos, play them in the background. They're really good.
There's a question here about constipation for non-secretors. That's a good question. So basically, because us as non-secretors have a hard time producing bifidobacteria, and trust me, I've tried many different probiotics. They help, but they don't. The best thing for me, I have found, and for my clients, is a low carbohydrate diet. Fiber for us, like high fiber, high carbs, the grains and things actually just make it worse. So more of like a high protein, moderate fat type way of eating. And then when you do eat your vegetables, I find that cooked, many times cooked vegetables are easier for people like that to digest. You could also take, well, make sure you're taking magnesium, because magnesium is needed for over 300 enzymatic reactions in the body, and our soil is deficient. So we're not getting enough from our food, even if we eat magnesium rich foods. So you want to make sure that you're getting enough magnesium. So I like magnesium citrate is a good form because it has a slight stool softening effect. For people with constipation, oxide is a great intestinal cleanser, but it's not going to address a deficiency. So you can take oxide to get your bowels moving, but it's not going to, you're going to want other forms like glycinate, malate, and or citrate to help with a deficiency. There's an oxygenated magnesium, it's called oxy powder. That's really great for people to get their bowels moving. But honestly, I found like a low carbohydrate way of eating, and then supporting the gut with probiotics, magnesium, and maybe digestive enzymes if needed while you're healing your gut can be very helpful for that.
Alternates to Tylenol. So first and foremost, a fever is a naturally occurring process the body does. We do this to try to kill off something that's affecting us. There's I watched this clip about bees and this wasp that would come and kill the bees. And what the bees learned to do, the bees would coat the wasp and shake violently, creating a lot of heat, and bring the heat up to the point that the wasp would actually die. That was the only way that they could kill the wasp. They couldn't physically kill it, but the heat would kill it. And that's essentially what kind of a fever is doing when we have it. Of course, we don't want a fever to get up around 105, 106. We're getting into some dangerous areas there. But a low grade fever, if I personally have a low grade fever, I'm letting it ride. I feel horrible. It stimulates the natural killer cells in our immune system. I try to let it ride as much as I can, unless I'm just absolutely miserable. And I know it's hard, but that's just the case. There is a purpose to that fever. Now, if we have a virus and it's really, really high, cool. You know, Advil, I think, is better. Motrin's better. Anything's better than Tylenol. The natural way to handle it is ginger, is what I've been told. Ginger works great. A lot of our pediatric doctors, that's what they use. Ginger tea, they'll actually brew ginger up with the water and make a tea with it and give it to a kid, let them start sipping it at the onset of a fever to try to keep it from getting bad. You got anything to add?
The only thing I was going to add is making sure that you're really staying hydrated, because dehydration will raise a fever very quickly, and staying hydrated can help keep a fever down. And, if you're drinking filtered water, which hopefully you are, but many times there's no minerals in it. So it's not really hydrating you. So, getting like mineral drops, adding minerals to your water, or getting water that has minerals in it is really important, because you need those electrolytes to be hydrated. So I would say that um, definitely can help.
Next questions. I'm assuming that's APOE and lithium orotate. I love lithium orotate. I think it's an amazing thing that we all should be taking. It's interesting. There's studies that show water levels of lithium, lower levels of lithium in those cities have increased violent crimes. It's kind of cool. And there's a ton of research that's come out this year just on lithium orotate and dementia. So yeah, absolutely. I think you're right on point there. Do we recommend lithium in our brain function?
Yes.
Good, good.
Yep. It's on the APOE page. Yep.
Good. I love lithium orotate 5 milligrams a day, especially in like concussion clients. Absolutely. This is why I like Zymogen's multi-mineral. I think it's called Minrex. Their Minrex is it's one of the only multi-minerals on the market that contains lithium in it. And I think it's fantastic. And it's cheap too. I put it in my daily routine all the time. So yes, I'm a big fan of lithium.
Yeah, and it also helps to get folate and B12 into the brain, because low levels of cerebral levels of folate and B12 can cause issues with again, autism, Alzheimer's, and ADHD. So lithium orotate can be really helpful and take off that need for going higher doses, especially if somebody has issues with getting the folate into the cell. And somebody said I mentioned, and it wasn't the MTHFD1. The one that has to do with the folate receptor is SLC19A1. MTHFD1. That one has to do with, do you remember what that one is off the top of your head?
It's the one that breaks down folic acid.
Okay. Yeah, so that one you'd want to, if you have MTHFD1, you definitely want to avoid folic acid.
Yeah.
Same
Lithium,
thing with
we recommend lithium too, and a lot of doctors recommend lithium orotate when B12 levels are elevated, because it's not getting into the cell. And we look at the CD320 gene for that, and that's an immediate lithium orotate to help that receptor operate. And what's interesting with the Alzheimer research, homocysteine in the brain is tied directly to dementia and Alzheimer's. So these all play a role there too. So is it the B12 not getting into the brain that's causing some of this too? Maybe, but lithium's fantastic.
Yeah.
What vitamin D genes do you see in spectrum kids? I don't think I've ever really seen a pattern there. Have you? With D?
No, it's a lot with I would say B12 is a big one, especially in nonverbal. There's studies that show that children with autism that are nonverbal, that actually, and I had actually had a client that took him to a doctor that specialized in autism and started giving him B12 shots, and he actually started saying
Talking.
words.
Yep.
Yeah.
It happens a lot, especially MTRR variants and the methyl injection. Like
Right.
24 hours they're talking.
Yeah, it's crazy. And then diet plays such a huge role with those kids, and like that MAOA, slow MAOA, that one I see that a
Huge.
lot. Yeah, with ADHD, autism, especially when they have a lot of outbursts and anger. And when you take out foods high in tyramine, which are very similar to histamine, and you support that gene, the kids, and you take out the toxins, these children have gone from, I've seen it, where they've gone from hurting themselves, banging their head, biting their parents, to being happy and focusing better. And it's just, it's amazing.
PEMT with other MTHFR mutation, we've kind of discussed that. You know, I really hit that home earlier, I think.
Yeah.
Phosphatidylcholine all day long. It supports both. That's a perfect product for that combination. Which gene for dairy and BMI? That's APOA2 or APOA1? A1, right?
APO.
APOA1.
It was the 2.
Or maybe it's 2.
Like it could be. I don't know.
I'm not good with numbers.
Some of them I know like the back of my hand. Some of them I keep. I'm like, what is that again? Well, I've been doing it for 8 years. I think I have it all memorized by now. But
So the question about the false elevation of B12 levels with FUT2, the research with that false elevation is around 20%. So if you do a serum B12 level, knock it down 20%, and that's probably where you're really actually at. There's some labs that'll do an active B12, but to get that done is kind of tough. We're kind of looking into trying to find a way to get that done in the States. It's easier in like Australia, UK, Germany to get better B12 testing. We're working on that here. The urine test is a methylmalonic acid test. Any lab should be able to do that. MTHFD1, that's breaking. It slows down the production of the precursors that MTHFR uses. So these upstream variants from MTHFR will compound an MTHFR variant. And this particular one is really associated with folic acid, the synthetic one. So we can actually tolerate a little bit of synthetic folic acid, a little bit, not a lot, a little bit. And I'm going to take some heat for saying that, but it's true. The MTHFD1 variants, if you have it, you can't tolerate hardly any. So it's really, really important to avoid synthetic folic acid with that one. But
yeah, and that's why the test will say makes MTHFR worse.
Tabacon is the name. Yep, that's it. I've been there the last 2 years. That's like my favorite place on earth. She knows right where I like to go.
Okay.
Yeah, FRAT, the receptor, folate receptor antibody test, great test. I don't know much about it, but I know that it's a big one. A lot of really need folinic acid, probably lithium orotate in that thing, in that situation.
So the methyl donor sensitivity one, the one with the compound heterozygous C677T A1298C, the sensitivity comes from the COMT gene, COMT, not from MTHFR. How long do you take lithium orotate?
Let's go back up to her. She's asking compound heterozygous, but results state likely tolerant and take as needed. So you're likely to tolerate methylfolate fantastically, likely. So you should try it. I would try it as long as you've done everything in the report up to that page. Go for it. You can always start with folinic acid. There's really no problem with that, but since it states you're likely tolerant to it, you should be fine. Statistically, you should be fine. Well, lithium orotate, how long you can take it? It is an essential nutrient, I believe. Like you have to have it. So it's in foods, it's in our drinking water. You can take it, I think, probably. I like to pulse things. I don't ever like to take something unless I feel better on it and that need to take it every day. So I would say if you take it every day and you feel better on it, I don't think it's going to hurt to take a low dose of it.
I think we got all these until the methyl donor sensitivity. The symptoms of being sensitive to methylated Bs would be anxiety, agitation, sleep issues. Usually the people just feel really aggravated. I know before I knew I had a methyl sensitivity, I was taking a B complex with the methylated Bs, and I was taking it for, I think I was taking it for like 2 weeks before I noticed. And all of a sudden I'm like, I was super agitated. I was snapping at everything. I'm like, why am I so aggravated? I'm like, I haven't done anything different, except I started taking this B complex. I took it out, and within a couple days I was back to normal. So that would be the things that you would look for.
MMA is the word on the street is MMA is more accurate in urine than blood. That's the word on the street. What supplement? Molybdenum. We recommend molybdenum for the SUOX gene variants and for aldehyde sensitivities, or if you get really hungover from alcohol. Molybdenum is a fantastic product.
Oh, somebody said they don't see the supplement brands you recommend on the Instagram page. So if you're on MaxGen's private Facebook group, there's a link to Whole Scripts, I believe it is. You guys use Whole Scripts, right?
Yeah,
where you can find the high quality supplements that were mentioned on Whole Scripts on the page, Facebook page. There's a link to it.
or just write in or message our social media. They'll get you a link. And Whole Scripts is a good place to. It's direct from the manufacturers that we trust. It's really a good place. Don't use Amazon for anything.
But no, don't use Amazon.
Let's see. Do we suggest a whole genome testing company? We're looking at different ones right now. I've not found one that we're just really blown away with. We'll probably eventually launch one, maybe next year sometime. That it's not going to be cheap because we're going to have someone actually do it right. I don't know of any I'm going to recommend because I'm hearing bad stuff from pretty much everybody. And I'm not going to start naming names of people who are awful. But if you do find someone, at least get 100x coverage. I wouldn't do the 30x coverage. Nobody that's doing it right now is doing it correctly. I definitely wouldn't spend under $800 for that if you want to go that route. And the thing with the ultra variants too, ultra rare pathogenic severe variants, that's what's looking at. You're going to know if you have those early on. These are kids who are really, really, really sick, and they get caught quickly. I don't think it's as common as people like to think it is. These are really, really sick individuals, and a lot of them are not compatible with life. Why won't insurance pay? Insurance hardly pays for anything to begin with. If sometimes they'll pay for full genomic testing, but it's like $7,000 for mitochondrial and things like that. If someone's like really, really sick or a kid's really, really sick, they just don't see it being clinically useful. It's the insurance game. That's why we don't take it. That's why we try to avoid them as much as possible. They really limit what you can and can't do trying to save a penny. They don't care. Insurance does not care. I keep a catastrophic plan on myself, in case I get in a car wreck or something happens. I hate insurance. All right.
Anybody that takes insurance, then you're that's why holistic and functional medicine don't take it, because as soon as you do, then you have to go by their rules, and their rules are you can't do any of this, which really it's stupid.
It's really unfortunate. That's why we've tried to make this as affordable as possible, you know. And if you go get MTHFR just by itself, your doctor orders it, you're only getting MTHFR. You're not getting any of the other folate genes, none of the histamine genes, none of the detox genes, nothing. And I think the cash rate through Quest or LabCorp is around $100, $120. And if you get an insurance, you try to run insurance on it and you get a denial, you're looking at $600 or $700. Four to $800 I've seen get billed for MTHFR alone. So I really, that's why we've tried to make this affordable. $200 with the payment plans, like, I don't know, $30 a month, maybe $40 a month. So I'm not a fan of insurance.
Yeah, before I did before I knew about genetic testing, I had gotten tested for MTHFR. And I was told it was going to be covered by my insurance. And then the insurance said, oh, no, we're not covering that. And it cost me, it was over $300 for one test.
Yep.
And that was years ago. So I don't know. And again, like now that I do genetic testing, it really pains me when people put that money out for one gene when there's so many genes in the methylation pathway that affect folate metabolism, B12, B6, glutathione, phosphatidylcholine. These are all needed for that methylation pathway. And so, you know, you can have, know you have MTHFR, but that's not really good. That's not giving you much of a picture at all.
But they will pay if you want a pharmacogenetic test to tell you what kind of drugs to take. They'll cover that. Yeah. So, and that can help a lot of people out. I'm not knocking that. I have a lot of psychiatry friends that use that type of testing, and they say it really is a game changer for helping determine psychiatric meds. And we have one. I don't think it's on the website, but we do have one.
Well, you think about it, you have somebody who has a slow MAOA, slow CompT, too many neurotransmitters, and you put them on an SSRI, which is going to push more serotonin into the brain or dopamine. And that's where you get those side effects where suicidal thoughts and things like that. So it's very, you know, there's so many things nutritionally we can do to balance our neurotransmitters naturally, amino acids, adaptogenic herbs. Yeah.
So 350 from Quest 4 years ago. Someone just wrote.
Okay, that's probably what I paid, like 350. It was more than 4 years ago, but yeah.
All right.
And you can get the whole works panel for $349
on a payment.
So
yeah. All right, it's 1:30. We're 30 minutes over. I think we need to get moving.
Oh wow. Yeah.
Thanks for joining. Always fun talking with you, Debbie.
You too, Chad.
I guess we're getting cut off. Janelle's cutting us off.
Chad and Debbie, thank you so much. That was amazing. All the expertise today, giving us such a clear, practical look at how MaxGen testing reports work and how it can transform the way we approach health. And thank you so much to everyone who joined us live and hopefully on replay if you weren't able to catch it or catch the whole thing, because we did go over, but I was so here for it. We hope you're walking away with new insights, a deeper understanding of your own health, and the confidence to take this next step in your wellness journey. If you're ready to explore your own genetic blueprint, you can learn more and order your test directly at maxgenlabs.com. Until next time, stay curious, stay well, and we will see you soon. Bye.